Hello, thank you all for joining. We're going to talk about how to properly use Claude Code to add some guardrails to your Drupal projects. I am Ryan Olson. I have some contact information on my front slide. I kind of gave some of y'all an overview of my history already, but I started off in React, Redux stuff, did some Java, and eventually my company asked if they needed some Drupal devs, and I said sure. So I started doing Drupal a couple years ago. I escaped from sales. Huzzah, that was awful. Off the clock, I have a 7-year-old daughter and my wife. And if you guys have not read Dungeon Crawler Carl or listened to it in audiobooks, I highly recommend it. And I was at Drupal Asheville last year, and I am excited this year to be a speaker. So thank you all for attending. All right, let's get into this. Why guardrails? I kind of posed the question early on, like how many of us have used AI. I know we're at some different statuses. When I first started using AI, it was not as great as it is these days. And these days, even using AI, if you don't give it proper context, it's very easy to have it edit files that are not tracked, or throw your logic in your Twig instead of a preprocess hook. Or your context window can start growing too large, and we'll talk a lot about that, and trying to find that sweet spot in your context window. It'll edit your contrib modules directly. That's fun, and then you can't figure out what it edited because nothing's tracked. Yeah, that's super cool. And then, of course, security implications. So if we apply proper guardrails using code quality, token efficiency, and consistency, that will give us confidence. Really, that should probably say equals, but we'll let it slide. Just some general stuff about LLMs so we're on the same page before I get started, before I get really into like how to use the AI. LLMs are stateless, so every conversation is a brand new slate. So it's like having a new developer join every 20 minutes or every time you hit clear. It won't remember what you built, it won't remember your team's naming conventions, it doesn't know if you're using single directory components or block templates, it has no idea your contrib files. So we need some way to give our LLM some context every time we start a conversation with it. So we can use Claude MD along with skills to give it some of that institutional knowledge. And I also just wanted to note that there is a knowledge cutoff. This is getting less and less consequential because the AIs are kind of catching up more and more. But at some point, your AI's knowledge just gets cut off. So it might not know if you're using something brand new. It might not know if APIs get changed. It's definitely not going to know your site-specific architecture. So just be aware that there is a knowledge cutoff. I want to go over what is a token. So the way AI works, does anybody understand tokens? Is anybody that's a little confused? All right, I'm going to burn through this. So if we were to break this sentence down, guardrails, not guesswork. This says that it's 6 tokens. It's not necessarily 6 tokens. The AI hashes it and breaks it up kind of weird. But let's just assume that 750 words is around 1,000 tokens. And note that your code uses a lot of tokens. Like if you have 200 lines of code and you feed it in there, it'll read all 200 lines of code and your indents and everything else. And one really cool thing I want to show you. So if you, let me get this guy up. So if you're using Claude, that already was huge. Oh, here you can see me setting up my setting up my instance. So if you're using Claude and you type @readme, so if I do this to add my file in, that's going to add the entire. Oh, sorry, man. Hang on. I can embiggen this. I don't know if I can embiggen that.
Nope. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, I don't know that I can. I'm sorry, but I will attempt to convey properly what I'm putting in here. So if you put the @ and then readme, that's going to load that entire file into Claude, and it's going to read the whole thing. If you instead just grab that readme, and we copy the path, cool, and we say like, please review this file, try and pick out the relevant parts to the single directory components, that's what we're going to work on. If you say something like that, and then you type in the file, instead of reading that entire file, it's going to go through and cat it and read the parts that are relevant to what you're doing. So if you're trying to limit your context, maybe instead of throwing the entire file in there, just give it a reference to the file and tell it some stuff that you're going to do, or take a snippet out of the file so you can kind of give it directly what it is that you're working on. Let's see here. Get back to this guy. All right, input tokens and output tokens. Normally, input tokens not normally. Input tokens are inherently less expensive than output tokens. 90% of what I do is input tokens because I'm usually giving it context, I'm giving it code, and the code that it writes, it's not writing thousands of lines of code usually. It's outputting a small portion of a small response. So though your response costs about 3 to 5 more tokens, I find that the majority of my token cost is in input tokens and not when Claude replies to me. But that does affect how you're billing and also your context window. So I just wanted to note that too. All right, context window. I like to stay somewhere around, like when I start hitting 140 to 160,000 tokens, I try and make a new chat. Like once I hit 160, I bail. And there's a few ways where you can bail and retain your context. So we'll talk about that. But this, I just kind of wanted to show, like, so for turn, this shows 4 turns. This can be 20 turns, 15 or whatever. So your first turn, this blue section is your prior context, and there's always prior context. Even if you just say hi Claude, it's going to have some amount of prior context or your code base or whatever that it's sending in, your Claude MD file, etc. The yellow is going to be your prompt. So you start off with some context in your prompt, and then you have this whole 87% free where it can just think and use up space and generate answers for you. Turn 2, all right, you had your old context plus your new context. Is going to take everything from turn 1 and bump that into turn 2. Then it's got your new context, so you have a little bit less space. Turn 3, same thing. By the time you get to turn 4, your context is more than 64% of your chat, and then you're down to this little 25% left where Claude can actually think. So once you get to turn 4 in quotes, it might be turn 20. But once you get to that point, it's really important to clear your context because the AI is really, really great at remembering the start of a chat and the end of a chat. It sucks at remembering the middle. And the longer your chat gets, the more stuff there is in the middle, and the more it's going to lose that entire context. Let's see, is this where I want? Yes. OK, so one way to help monitor your context is by adding in a status line.sh. Here's a snippet of some code I referenced in the last slide. I have a reference to this file and several other files. So you guys will have access to all this code. But what I wanted to show is that if I just put test in here, I want to show a couple things. And I'm sorry, this is so small. But you can see here, my chat is 26,000. So just hi, or whatever I put in there, test. It still used 26,000 tokens out. Just the word test. And that's because it's sending my Claude MD, and it's sending whatever random context it thinks is important to go along with that word. You can see here I only got 146, not 146K, but 146 in my response. This dollar thing, honestly, it's not as accurate as I would like it to be, so I'm probably going to pull that out. These are really important. So this one tells me that my context is going to refresh at 8:20 p.m., and I've used 0%. Awesome. You need to watch this, because oftentimes, I've ran into situations where I'm working on something, and that context will bump up, and you really do need to monitor it. And understand that if you hit your window, I'm going to have to wait till 8:20 before I can ask it anything. It just locks you out. Even if you try and up your plan, it locks you out once you hit that limit. So it's important. And then this one's really important, the weekly context. I think it resets every Friday unless they changed it. And you're out until that resets. So if you're working on something important, especially like for work, it's vital to monitor this so that if you end up in a situation where you're going to run over your context, you can at least alert your manager, in my case, and go like, hey, Kevin, sorry. Sorry, you're welcome. I'm doing a lot of work, and I'm going to go over my context. We're going to have to up the plan. And in my experience, the sooner you can tell folks that, the better off you are. And even better if you can monitor it ahead of time and recognize that you're starting to get close and back off a little bit and adjust your practices accordingly. Maybe you don't hit that limit. So that's even better. I have this code in this demo. Oh, please, I'm supposed to be on this guy. Main, check out. I added this code in this demo right here. Normally, this would not be here, but I kind of just, oh, sorry, status line. Status line. There we go. Get that bigger. And smaller, and go away. I didn't write any of this. I just asked Claude, and it's wonderful at writing this stuff. So you just say, hey, Claude, give me a status line. I kind of just gave it an image of what I wanted, which was this guy up here. And you can see at the bottom, top it does all the calculations, but here's where it gives you your human readable output. So feel free to take this, update it, make it your own, etc. But I find that super, super useful. All right, let's get back to that guy. All right, cool. Engineering. So it's easy to think that, okay, the AI is so smart, and it can do so many things, and it understands engineering and code and architecture, and so it's easy to think that, like, okay, I don't need to worry about architecting my code base so much anymore. It's just going to do it for me, and that's not true. You need more than ever. You need to rely on these engineering principles that we have kind of all collectively decided that are important, and make sure that your AI is properly applying them. So, things like clean code, don't repeat yourself, establish Drupal patterns, testing. It is wonderful at testing. I have a lot of these skills that say, like, hey, we want to do like red-green refactor. And I'm not up to refactor. I should say red-green. but it absolutely will do red-green testing to make sure that it identifies the pieces that it needs to work on, and then gets you to green. So you have confidence that that test is in place. And work on vertical slices. Like, don't work on the entire feature that I'm trying to build. Break it up into pieces so that we can test like a very simple end-to-end, and then we can test maybe some the next layer, and then at the end we do the UI stuff and test that manually. Oops. AI will mirror your code. So this guy over here, if you have a well-architected code base, your AI will take into context that code base and will reproduce similar code. If you have a tangled code base, your AI will look at that tangled code base and assume that that is your standard, unless you have something in place to tell it not to do that. So it's more important than ever to have that well-architected code base and that starting point, so that when you use AI to develop, it has those building blocks, and it's not just building a house of cards for you that's going to come tumbling down. All right, so how do you tell the AI how to do stuff? There's 3 ways that I found to be successful. There's a lot of ways. I use these 3 ways. ClaudeMD, skills, and settings.json. And we'll go over each of those in the next slide here. So your ClaudeMD file. There are 2 ways of thought on this. I am of the way of thought that you should have as little information as possible in your ClaudeMD. It's loaded every session, so it's going to add your context every single time. Claude has like a init or something. I think it's like an init, like /init that you can hit, and it'll generate your ClaudeMD for you, but I hate it. It throws in so much unnecessary information. Like, it'll tell what modules you're using. I think mine even has what version of Drupal's in there, and I'm going to take that out. Like just things that it can simply infer. Like the AI knows where to find your modules. You don't need to tell it every module you're using. If you have a specific use case where you're doing something with a module, yes, mention it. But mention that in your prompt. Don't put it in ClaudeMD, because that's going to be in every single time. So really, the only thing I try and put in ClaudeMD is when it makes mistakes habitually, and when it makes mistakes on a global level. It's things like, hey, we're using layout builder blocks, or we're using single directory components, or I think I mentioned before, stop putting logic in our Twig. Put it in our in a hook, in a preprocess hook. So try and keep your ClaudeMD as small as possible. And I'll show examples of all these in a sec. Settings.json and settings.local.json. Settings.local.json is for you, your individual developer. Settings.json you commit to Git, and you commit on your Claude or whatever AI you're using folder. And that is shared among your team. It's specific commands that it can or cannot do. Look at that in a moment. And then we're going to look at skills next, I believe. Yes. So how many people have used a skill? Hey, all right, most of us. Awesome. All right, so for everyone, just so we're on the same page, if you've typed a similar prompt more than once, that is a great candidate for a skill. A skill is nothing more than an MD file. It's a way to encode your expertise. So this is where you can start to put in like your conventions, your stack, your rules, really specific granular rules that you want the AI to follow. Claude can write your skills for you. I've not written a single skill myself. I don't recommend you ever do. I recommend you use the AI. Claude can edit its own skills. It's great at that. One of the skills I have is a skill called trim my skill. So really, I go through, I have write a skill. So I go through and I write a skill. Half the time it's too long, and then I go through with trim a skill, and we try and trim it down and make it a little more worthwhile. There's two ways to invoke a skill. You can do it manually, like this guy here. So you put the slash, and you write your skill. If you hit tab, you can give it commands after that. If you hit enter, it'll just start going. You can also have Claude decide when to use your skill. So if you have a properly defined skill, the top of it has a name and a description. Oops. And it'll infer from that description and the name when it needs to use the skill. It's pretty obvious for do work. It's going to do it when it needs to do work. And I think, all right. I'm on the fence as to do this slide before or after I show you some more stuff, but I'm going to do it before. So this is my daily workflow. And it has changed an awful lot. This planning stage now is almost 80% of my workflow. And the build stage, which used to be 80% of my workflow, which was me writing code, is now more automated. It's less human in the loop. So I start off with plan. First off, I'll write a PRD, preliminary requirements document. There's like 4 or 5 different PRDs out there, but write some type of requirements document. So you define what you're trying to do, and I'll show you the skill. It's really cool. I did not write this. I borrowed it from Matt Pakak. He is mentioned at the end of this also. He is not in the Drupal community in any sort of way. He's a TypeScript guy, but he is wonderful at using Claude and teaching other people to use Claude. I took one of his cohorts, and that's where I got a lot of this information from. So he's referenced at the end. Check him out. He's awesome. Anyway, so write a PRD. We'll go through and we'll look at it in detail in a moment. But it's basically going to write your requisition document along with user stories and specific implementation decisions. And it'll ask you, the skill is designed so that it will ask you to clarify anything that's ambiguous. So after I write my PRD, that's like my initial MD document, or it can be a GitHub issue, depending on what you're doing. If I'm doing this for my job, I write a local MD document. If I'm doing this for my personal stuff, I have a different flow where I create, instead of a local MD document, I create a GitHub issue as a PRD. And I do the same thing. I take that issue and then that PRD and I break it into more GitHub issues. If I'm working on, so that's this one. If I'm working for actual work stuff for my job, I try to be a little more careful. And I am more in the loop in the entire thing. And I'll do a PRD to plan that's locally. So it'll create a local MD file with a plan that has phases of implementation. And then I'll in going through, activate all that on my own, human in the loop, and walk through each phase and reset my context accordingly every time I need to. If I do this one, I tend to, once I have my issues, I'll just run an autonomous Ralph loop in a sandbox, and I'll show you guys that stuff. And it'll get everything done that's not human in the loop. And at the end, I pretty much just hop in, for code reviews and making sure everything's right. Whenever I do a complicated feature, I always do a code review or a PR review. And I find that the AI catches a lot of mistakes before I send this to my lead engineer for review, and he yells at me. Adam's pretty nice. He doesn't yell at me. All right. Let's look at some cool stuff now. Oops. All right. So let's start off looking at actually, I think I did this all in the right order if I just go to the left. All right. Let's start off with ClaudeMD. So our ClaudeMD file is here in our root directory. Hang on. There we go. All right, so again, this is almost too long. Like, I want this to be shorter, and it's only 32 lines. But I could probably pull this out. It should know that it's Drupal and DDev, and it probably knows this anyway. So I would like to pare this down more, but for demo purposes, I was trying to get something together. Just know that again, your ClaudeMD should just be mistakes that it has made, and so I try and limit it to just mistakes that it has made, and maybe a little bit of advice, like, hey, this is using single directory components in Canvas. So that's your ClaudeMD. Basic takeaway, small as possible. Let's look at a couple skills. This is a simple one. This is the commit skill. I love this thing. One logical change per commit. It's everything I try to do, but it actually does it for me. A brief message. Say why. The important stuff. Try and keep it short. It was authoring, but I didn't like the co-author, so I put that on there. But nice, simple little skill. Pretty short. Here's the format. It's got a nice little, here's a message shape. 50 lines, cool. It's pretty simple. I highly recommend using commit skill. I have not written a commit message in like 6 months, and I am so happy about it. This one is more complicated. So this is adding fields. So adding fields on an existing bundle. So it'll try and figure out what the content type is. It's got a checklist. Do you have all the proper fields? Let's see. Somewhere in here, it's going to reference my. Where's adding fields? Give me one moment here. Skills. Adding fields. Okay, sorry. This does not reference anything else. This one's simple. But it goes through, has some gotchas, and has a small little QA. Make sure the thing works, the save, persist, etc. But again, that's pretty simple. My do work is where it starts to get a little more complicated because do work encompasses a lot. So you can have a skill reference other skills. So usually I'll write my plan or whatever, and then I will tell it to do work on a specific task or phase of that plan or whatever. And so this do work is not terribly long. It's probably still longer than I'd like, but it delegates to all of these other skills. So it delegates to adding fields, build a view, edit a view, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, commit. So the takeaway is just that you can have a generic skill delegate to other skills. And then those skills can have reference files and stuff too. I think this is my do work reference. So it says hey, yeah, do work reference. So use tracer bullets. Try and do it in slices. That has been a wonderful addition when I have to write custom code. These Twig rules, these things are great. I tagged an article at the end on a resource of 7 bagged Twig practices, and I fed that article into AI, and it came up with this, and I use a version of this in my all of my work projects. And since I've started adding this in, my code has been so much better. It doesn't make me cry anymore when I go to code reviews. So anyway, skills can reference skills. Skills can also have reference documents. If you find your skill is over 100 lines, it's too long. You need to shorten it. You can make use of things like trim a skill. And my trim a skill actually has a script that it can run. It has all this stuff here. But the gist of trim a skill is keep all of my context, remove all my duplication. If it's too long, shove something in a reference file. So I've found that to be pretty. And then we also have somewhere in here is write a skill. I'll find that in a minute though. So focusing, sorry, I'm bouncing all over. But before I bounce more, does anybody have any questions so far?
I'm curious about the commit skills. Blow my mind. That is such a thing that we need in an organization. When the other dev does a PR and reviews what Claude is doing via the commit skill, is the guy or the person oh my god, this is fine, or are they this is trash?
So
through hell?
I use this to review my own skills before anyone reviews my PR. So this is, I have 2 of them. I have, and I may have put the wrong one. I have. Let me see, is it on here? I have Drupal code review. So this is, hey, did I break anything? This is literally check everything, make sure everything, and then somewhere over here, I don't know if I have it in this repo, but I have write a PR. So what I normally do for my workflow is I will first, sorry, this is terribly small. I will first run Drupal code review. So get diff, figure out what I did. I basically say review every change made on this branch, and then I type in Drupal code review and hit enter. And it'll give me a nice recap. Let me see. It usually does it at the bottom. It'll give me a nice recap here of a summary, any security issues, critical issues, recommendations, positive notes. It will always find a critical issue. It will always find a security issue. They may not be legit. You need to use your brain. And if you're not sure, ask it. You can ask it. Hey, Claude, this thing that you wrote here seems suspect at best. Is this a legitimate thing we need to address, or are you just looking for stuff? And it'll be honest with me most of the time and go, oh yeah, I was just looking for stuff. You're probably fine. So ask your AI. Like, don't just assume it's right. Oftentimes, try and play like a little devil's advocate and see, how it responds. All right, so to try and walk through I'd like to walk through like my basic workflow. Oh, man, am I on time already? Okay, walking through my basic workflow with you guys. First thing I'll do is write a PRD, and we're going to burn through this real fast. Sorry. Please take a look at the repo. So
You're not out of time.
Oh, am I not out of time? It's not 3:45?
You started at a quarter.
Oh, I have till 4.
Yeah.
You're a great time manager.
Oh,
Thank you.
Great.
All right. All right, guys. So, like I said, I have plenty of time. We're going to walk through this stuff. This is my favorite skill. And it's mostly because of this. Ask the user what they want to do. Explore the repo. This explore word is like a key word for Claude. Anytime you're starting something, tell it to explore the repo in context. Like say, hey, I want to do this. Explore the code repo. Tell me when you have an understanding, and then we'll go forward. That explore keyword tells it to explore the code base, but it really does work. This interview me relentlessly, sketch out the major modules, et cetera, and then it gives you this nice little PRD with a problem statement, a solution, user stories, implementation decisions, tells you stuff that's out of scope, and further notes. And I will show you that in a moment. After I run this, I run 2 issues. Sorry, everything is tiny. So for 2 issues, yeah, that's good. We then take our PRD and we break it down into independently grabbable issues with vertical slices. And it goes through and it explores the code base, and then this is the cool part. So it drafts vertical slices. So break it into kind of tracer bullets so that each issue is then can be testable. Note what's human in the loop. Note what's AFK. Here's your vertical slice rule. Quiz the user. Please God, ask me more. So anytime it doesn't understand something, don't make it up. Ask me. Ask me about the granularity. Then iterate, publish the changes, and then we get our issue template here where it references the parent. So that's super useful so that if the AI is working on step 2, it can go back and reference the parent document, whether that's an issue in GitHub or a Jira issue, or whether it's just an MD file in my local, file base. Anyway, this is the format, and we'll look at this in a moment. And that's the end of our issue template. Let's see. Let's look at some issues. Let's look at the PRD that it wrote. Okay. So first let's look at the website that I made. This is not amazing, guys. It's a demo. So you please be kind. It's a board game demo. It's a website about board games. So I basically hit a site, told Claude to scrape it, and was like, hey, make a site about board games. So we can browse the catalog. Oh no, that looks awful, but the rest of it's okay. So I put some effort into this. But we have some content types. We have mostly board games, publishers, and designers. Here's our content types here. I didn't do any of this. I said, hey, Claude, help me make a website, and kind of walk through all of these steps. We're not going to talk about that right now, but we are going to talk about this. All right. So this page is somewhat set up. This page is just ugly, right? There's nothing on it. It just lists a bunch of games, and it's super ugly. For demo purposes, I want to reuse existing styles and also apply a background just to this page. So I had a prompt that did that. And, hang on. Let me hop on. I think that's on style taxonomy view. There we go. So originally I was going to walk you guys through all these prompts, and it just took too long, and I couldn't pull it off. But here is my implementation, and it fails miserably the first time, so I kind of wanted to show you guys that too, to just be fully honest. So here's my Claude demo. I just copied and pasted my Claude transcripts because it was too small on the other thing. I couldn't get it larger. So I said, hey, write a PRD for our taxonomy view. Right now it's ugly, reuse our styles. Oh, I had this background image already generated, so I was like, hey, here's my image. Then I said, oh yeah, use single directory components. Something broke, so then I was like, start again. It invoked my write a PRD skill, and then it asked me, let's see here. taxonomy, hang on. All right, it's not, sorry guys, when I copied and pasted, it didn't put my answers and questions in, but it did ask me like 3 or 4 very relevant questions to try and define exactly what I wanted it to do. Went through and read a whole bunch of stuff. It's trying to check how game card and the hero thing are wired. Somewhere in here it finally gets back to me. It confirms GitHub access and creates the PRD. Cool, there's my PRD. So this is actually creating this PRD. Right here. Oh god, that's small. There we go. So now we get to see like the magic, not the magic, but the PRD that it produced. So we get a nice problem statement here that clearly restates my gibberish that I had originally asked it. The solution, a full background image. Also, the game is going to be a game of card. You know, they're going to reuse. Somewhere in here it says they're going to reuse the design. I really like this, the user stories. This is, to me, invaluable because it communicates exactly what the AI is supposed to do and why it's supposed to do it. And it gives it that much needed context. And then down here we have our implementation decisions, which are also pretty awesome, you know, how it's going to actually implement. And this is where it did ask me several questions about this, and I apologize I didn't capture that part. And then we also have out of scope. And so what I did then is I broke that down further into issues. So like here's one of our children issues. You see it references that parent, so you get that tie back again. But this is really in like what to build. It has acceptance criteria, so that's awesome. It tells you what it's blocked by, and it tells you user stories referencing back to that original PRD. So, and then here we start right off with red green refactor. So like just all things that I love. So and then as it goes through, you know, this isn't me. This is Claude saying, "Yep, we did it. We got it working. Blah blah. Awesome." So we went through. We wrote our PRD. And down here I asked it to, here you go. So down here I asked it to break that down farther into, there you go, PRD to issues. And here's where it starts getting real fun. So it says, okay, looks like here's our proposed breakdown. You know, does that look cool? Yeah, it's not that bad, and it's one human in the loop. Awesome. But I also really like that it's set up so that you can review what's human in the loop and what's not. And oftentimes, it'll try and throw some human-in-the-loop stuff, and I'll just tell them, I don't need to look at that. Just, you do it, and when it's done, I will be in the loop, and I'll fix it if I need to. So, you know, it's nice, and please review these. Like, don't just hit OK. Like, read your PR, you know, your PRD. Don't read the thing. You don't have to read every last little word. Read the synopsis, you know, read a couple parts, make sure that it's on board, and it looks like it's on the right track. So I went through and I did all this, and then once I had all of these issues here, so these guys, so I had my 4 issues. I popped on here and I ran this Ralph loop. Does anybody know Ralph loops?
Oh, it's like the Ralph Wiggum loop? Is that what
Yeah. So there's better ways of doing this now, but I enjoy Ralph loop. And so here, first let me show you the code. So this is my afk.sh. So what we do is we make a Docker sandbox and we run Claude. We run it in verbose, where it prints everything. Bypass permissions mode, it can do anything. And, you know, I give it my repo, and then I give it my previous commits. And what this says more or less is, up here it says, hey, go through and grab the last X amount of commits, review them, you know, figure out which issue you're on, maybe review the previous, you know, review all the open issues, figure out what one you're on, grab the context from the previous commits, and / do work. So then it'll invoke that do work. And we can see it working here. So this is just, I just copied the log, but it's kind of fun. So it starts off, it's fresh branch, no taxonomy work, so awesome. It's doing a tracer bullet, making config changes, et cetera, et cetera. Test 3 of 4 pass, awesome. So you know, you can kind of see it actually. So this is just running. I walked away and came back and it was done. And then, the great thing about this too is it runs one issue at a time, and then it closes, and then it starts a new chat. So that way you keep your context window in that nice little context. So like you're not ballooning out at any point in time, because every single time it finishes one of these issues, it starts a new chat. So you know, we get to here, it's writing global CSS, awesome, cool. Yeah, it's gonna fix that also. And then awesome, it's done. So I get a little summary here. It implemented the task, wrote the red green refactor, you know, cool, changed some things. And eventually we get to this, where it says, all right, I'm done. I'm done. And it knows that it's done because at that point, this was done and that was done, and the only thing we had left was this QA, and it was a human in the loop, so it knows, like, hey, I don't do human in the loop. So it knew when to stop. Now that would have been awesome if it actually got it right. Let's see, let's go back to the demo implementation. All right, somewhere in here, towards the bottom. Okay, because this is difficult to navigate in the way that I have it set up, I went back to it and was like, hey, I don't see my background. It's not there. I see your code. I agree it should work, but it's not there. And eventually it says, okay, well, maybe it's Olivero. Yeah, it's confirming some CSS stuff. And this is where I'm working with it. So I'll usually, I'll give it a screenshot like of, I would give it a screenshot of whatever broken thing it has. Let's see if it even works. Yeah. So and I would also usually inspect my page, and say like it's the background. I'd grab the background, and just screenshot this and give it to it. It also can use an MCP server to do it. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Fred. Oh, please. There we go. Okay, sorry. So the kind of thing that I just wanted to convey is that the AI is always sure that it got it. Always thinks it got it. 75% of the time now-ish, it's going to get it. But, if it doesn't get it, don't lose your mind. Just be patient, and you can work through it. It's going to figure out, what the issue is. And way down here, it figured out that Olivero's page wrapper needs to be opaque. It's opaque white, and it's overwriting my background that I just added. So instead, we need to make it, see-through, and then everything works fine. And at that point, we can hop over here and run a ddev drush cim. I hopped on my taxonomy style view. Oops. Ddev drush. I can type. There we go. And now, if we look at our background, oh, hang on, clear cache. Oh, please. All right, don't make me look bad in front of my friends. There we go. And now we have a wonderful background. I mean, it's there. And like this, I think we changed the text to white, and we changed it to a different style. But it did the thing. And it should only apply here. I think if I go home, yeah, no background. So I don't know why you'd ever want that, but it did what I asked. So I think that's kind of like a overview of how I use AI both in my professional workflow and my personal workflow. My personal workflow is more this flow of, I closed the page. This flow of using GitHub, wherever it is. There we go. This flow of actually using my GitHub issues to track and manage everything. I did make these repos public so that you can access all of them. I have some other repos that I also made public that I developed in a similar way. And one of my coworkers was like, hey, what if people just start making issues? Like, your AI is just going to do them. you need to not do that. And I was like, oh, crap, that's right. So I added some code for my personal repos. In all the Ralph loops, I have a line that just says, if the author is me, do it. If the author is not me, flag it. So there's ways around all these things. You just kind of have to think about what you're doing. And just to show a really off-the-walls thing of what is possible, is that opening? There we go. So I made this project, which but you don't really need to see the code, but this is a game that I made in Godot, and it's just fun and ridiculous. You can be a wizard kitten. And I got animation, I got dogs drinking beer. I died already. I got revive stuff here. We got skills, inventory, items. I'm a little empty right now and low on stuff, but I developed an entire level up system. I got animations if I can find a sword. I got bosses I can fight, and I did this thing entirely using Ralph loops and just autonomous development. And every now and then I had some human in the loop stuff, but it was just fun. And I got to focus on what I wanted to build and not necessarily how I wanted to build it. So y'all can do anything. Questions? I actually still have more to do. Sorry, I'm not done. Before questions, comments, concerns, I think I have one more slide. Oh, and I want to show you guys Whisper Flow. So this is really cool. Sorry. I caffeinated. Oh, not that app.
5 minutes.
Sweet. No, sorry, I want the last project I had. AI demo, there we go. All right, so this is really cool. I don't get paid by Whisperflow, but let's just start Claude up. And this is why I really like this. Hey, I want to write a function. No, not a function. I want to write a method. No, not a method. I want to write a function. A hook. I want to write a hook. Can you please help me write a hook for Drupal? Hey, I want to write a hook. Can you please help me write a hook for Drupal? So like I can just ramble and stumble my way through. And Whisperflow is awesome. And it also gives you, let's see, do I have it open? It'll give you a history of all your chats. It's very dangerous for me to open live, but but like if you forget what you're, if you have a really long prompt and for whatever reason you're in the wrong screen, you can go back and get it and you can just dump it in there, and that's very valuable. Images. If you're pasting images into Drupal, into Claude, it's tricky. If I copy this image, copy, and I go back to here, you'd think, because if you copy text, you'd think Command V, I'm on a Mac, you'd think that would paste it, but no, Command V only pastes your text. And sorry, Windows users, I don't know how to do it on Windows. But Control V, nope, sorry. That's because Whisperflow overwrote it. If you do this right, Control V will paste your text, and I'm going to make sure I actually do this right. Command C, Control V. There we go, image 1. So it's just a little gotcha. Like if you paste an image and it doesn't work, you got to hit Control. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Share, nope, not share. Slideshow. All right, we did that. Oh, handoff. I have a skill called handoff. There's also a skill called like compact, where Claude will hit, if Claude hits like, I don't know, 160 or 80-ish tokens, it'll run compact, and it'll try and compact your chat and let you keep going. Anytime I've ever used that, it's lost the majority of the middle of my chat, and again, it keeps like the start and the end. The skill called handoff just basically says make a temporary directory, shove all of our context in there. It'll take an argument, so if you want to write something after, you put your skill, it'll take that into account too, and it'll allow you to clear your chat, reference that temporary document, start a new chat, and tell it whatever you want it to do. So I like handoff a lot more than the native Claude one. Oh, resume is good. Rename is great. You should rename every single chat. Something specific. Oh, here, what am I doing? Something specific. There you go. Rename all your chats. So that way when you resume, you can go through here and actually see what in the heck it was I was doing, a week or two ago. If you have a ticket, rename your chat with a ticket. That is incredibly valuable. That has saved me more than one time at work. Let's see. Clear, we went over clear, resume. Memory, Claude does keep a memory of a lot of different things, so you can type memory. And you can get project memory, user memory, and there's also memory folder. Your project memory is stuff that's in ClaudeMD. Your user memory is pretty interesting. Oh, I don't have anything in here. But you should check your user memory, because it can get awfully bloated from time to time. So it's important to check that. Let's see, keyboard shortcuts, Option Enter for new line. Control S, that's very cool. Sometimes I'll get halfway through typing a prompt, and I'll realize, oh man, Claude's going off the rails. So I'll hit Control S, it stashes your prompt. Claude, stop going off the rails. You hit Enter, and then your prompt comes back. Let's see, we talked about file name, handoff. Oh yeah, if you're trying to set it up for an IDE, you can use /IDE, and it'll connect to Cursor or VS Code or whatever. No, Cursor is a bad example, but you get what I'm trying to say. Oh, bash. If you want to run a bash command in Cursor, you can just type this exclamation mark, and then you can say like ddev drush cim, and it'll just run the command, and it'll do it right there for you. I wouldn't recommend like compose or install, because it'll just eat your tokens. I honestly don't know how that affects your tokens, but very large commands I run on the side. Stuff like CIM I could run right here. I'm okay with that. Usage is also cool. It didn't used to take you here. That's a lot of stuff I probably don't want to show you. But oh, it's trying to give me a login. Sorry. All right, usage is also very useful. It'll help you see where you're spending your tokens and how. It gives you a nice little heat graph. So I highly recommend checking that out also. And I think I have one more slide to click on. Come on, buddy. Oh, over here. All right, rename every chat, whisper flow, writing and trimming skills, we talked about that. Claude Desktop, I made this entire presentation in Claude Desktop. I made like one slide, it did the rest. If you have, this is very important, this guy. If you have Claude generate stuff, I got you. If you have Claude generate stuff, especially like a view or a new field, make sure that you run your CIM and you test it. Make sure you run CEX because your YAML file, at least one field in the YAML file will be here and it should be here. And just make sure you don't get config drift. All right, and last thing, if you're on a branch, tell your AI to check the whole branch. It works wonderfully. I am Ryan, I'm out of time.